Do the elite top 1 not actually pay taxes? Or pay a very low amount compared to what they have? The higher your income, the higher percent of income is paid as tax. There's no amount of income where you stop paying or pay less. The reason people say the rich don't pay taxes is because the richest people don't have increases in their wealth come from income, but rather increases in the value of the stock they own. For example, if I own $1 billion worth of stock in a company, and that company grows and triples in value, then the stock I own would then be worth $3 billion. I would have increased my wealth by $2 billion without paying a cent in income taxes because I didn't have any income. Of course, if I sold any of that stock, then I would have to pay taxes on what I sold. So many of the ultra-rich pay a very small amount of taxes relative to their net worth, but a very large amount of taxes relative to their income. I think you're finding that the question isn't easy for a lot of people to answer. There's really a few elements to this. First is the income tax rates. They only go up to 37 for income. So, someone in the middle class can pay 20 and a person making millions will pay 37 on their income. Poor people make almost all their money on income. But when you're a millionaire, you invest in things like real estate, stocks, etc. Investments that make money are taxed as capital gains. If you hold an investment for a year, it's taxed as a long-term capital gain at 15-20. So there's the first tax break for the wealthy. If you make money on a long-term investment, like selling a sports franchise, you pay 17 less in taxes off the bat. Then you deduct business expenses, losses, etc. You can get the effective tax rate down to less than 10 in some cases. Here is the effective federal tax rate data for every income percentile, calculated by a 2022 study of 2019 tax filings by the Congressional Budget Office. See Exhibit 10. In conclusion, every successively higher earning group pays a higher total effective federal tax rate, topping out at 29.3 for the top 1 and 30.2 for the top 0.1. In the US, it is income that is taxed by the federal government, not assets. Although at the local level, one of the most common taxes is property tax, which taxes the total value of your home to various degrees, but it's the home value, not even your equity, and certainly not your income. In general, yes, there are a lot more tax loopholes to exploit and ways to shield your money as non-taxable when you're rich. Yes and no. It's pretty complicated. For starters, the one isn't actually as wealthy as you may think. It's wealthy, don't get me wrong, but it's an average annual salary of about $700,000 and above. The top 1 of earners pay something like 40% of the total income tax that the federal government receives annually. The thing is, lots of people, especially the ultra-wealthy, don't really have a ton of income. They have assets. Right now, assets aren't taxed until they are sold. As an example, when Musk sold off a ton of Tesla stock to buy Twitter, he had a huge tax bill due. Some of the ultra-wealthy basically never sell, though. They take out loans, use their stock options as collateral, and then don't pay taxes because there isn't any tax on debt. This happens sometimes, but most people aren't rich enough to do that. It varies wildly, but it's not like rich people are paying nothing. Whether they are paying their fair share is up to you, but all in all, the one currently shares a plurality of the tax burden in the United States. Taxes are paid on income, not what you have. And yes, every American is subject to the same tax brackets you are. The top 1 of earners pay 40% of all personal income tax paid. The top 10 of earners pay 70% of all personal income tax. People with the top 1 of net worth in the US in 2025 will have $11.6 million in net worth. The top 2 will have a net worth of $2.7 million. The top 5 will have $1.17 million. The top 10 will have $970,900. The top 50 will have $585,000. HTTPS. I think a lot of people would be surprised to know that half of Americans have access to over $500K. When you are struggling and renting, it is hard to imagine that, but it is common. That rift is a part of why it is so easy to split the motives of the working class. I think a lot of people hear billionaire and automatically assume that they are making hundreds of millions of dollars a year in actual income. Some might, but most don't. Billionaires don't have a Scrooge McDuck vault full of gold that they swim in, I hope. Most of their net worth is in assets. Real estate, cars, boats and planes, businesses, stock portfolios, art, etc. Some of those assets have tax advantages, and you better believe they take advantage of every single one. But they still send a lot of money to the IRS. They pay their taxes, but they understand taxes or have a CPA firm that does helping them pay a little tax as possible, but the 1% people typically pay a lot more than a normal person. I'm not an expert on this, but I believe what happens a lot of the time is a billionaire's net worth will go up because certain assets increase in value. They borrow money with assets as collateral, so they get, let's say, $100 million. They spend it freely without paying taxes. But then when they sell those assets, they pay taxes. The super rich just have more ways to get around taxes. It's not like normal folk that have a paycheck and the money is automatically taken out. The top 50 of US earners paid about 97.7% of all federal income taxes in 2020. This means that the bottom 50 of earners collectively contributed the remaining 2.3% of federal income taxes. This distribution highlights the progressive nature of the US tax system, where higher income individuals pay a significantly larger share of taxes. Half of us pay 97.7% of all taxes. How much more of a fair share do the top 50 owe the government? When the Forbes 400 came out, there were about 800 billionaires. The total wealth of those 400 was about 4.5 trillion. The minimum to make the list was 1.9 billion. Let's say for the sake of argument that the other 400 billionaires were all worth 1.8 billion each. That means all of the billionaires combined have a net worth of 5.22 trillion. That is their lifetime accumulation. Many of them are from multi-generational wealth, so several lifetimes. The government spent 1.7 trillion more than it collected in 1 year. This means if the next president confiscated every penny, that confiscation had zero impact on the economy. And the government spent at the same level. By January 2028 they will have spent 5.1 trillion, and by March the government would be deficit spending again. The issue we have is not the amount collected in taxes, it is the amount spent by government. The top 5 of earners over $250K pay about 66% of the national total in taxes. I don't understand how people don't know this. I'm not in the top 1, but maybe top 10, and I have no problem paying as much tax as possible. Why? Because that means I'm making holy, and that is a fantastic problem to have. I've been where I'm eating 1 meal a day and never leaving the house because if my tire blows out, I don't have enough in the bank to even get a tow and replace with a used tire. So, no people complaining about rich people, and taxes are not focused on the right shit in life. Warren Buffett has famously stated that he pays a lower tax rate than his secretary. People generally have misconceptions about the income and taxation of the one because people, in general, but specifically in the US and Canada, are extremely financially illiterate. Many people don't understand marginalized tax brackets, compound interest, APRA, or even budgeting. They are unlikely to understand or appreciate the more nuanced side of corporate finance. You pay taxes when you sell assets. If you just have a lot of money sitting in an investment account year after year, nobody taxes that. Nobody taxes stocks or other assets you hold and don't sell. So yes, you can be enormously wealthy and not pay much in taxes relative to your net worth. The Seattle Times IRS records show wealthiest Americans, including Bezos and Musk, paid little in income taxes. Report says the records, though, purport to show Buffett, head of Berkshire Hathaway, as having paid $23.7 million in federal income taxes on total income of $125 million from 2014 to 2018, which would indicate a personal income tax rate of 19%. ProPublica estimated that Buffett saw his wealth soar by $24.3 billion during that period, and so his true tax rate was 0.1%. Buffett has in the past called for tougher restrictions on the wealthy to prevent them avoiding paying taxes. Likewise, Musk, chief executive of Tesla, paid $455 million on $1.52 billion in income during the same period, when his wealth grew by $13.9 billion, accounting for a true tax rate of 3.27%, according to ProPublica. Bezos, chief executive of Amazon and the owner of The Washington Post, paid $973 million in taxes on $4.22 billion in income, as his wealth soared by $99 billion, resulting in a 0.98% true tax rate. Lots of people have commented on federal income tax, but news articles about this ignore every other kind of tax. For example, property tax for billionaires may be sky high,